Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 1313 podcast. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Tommy.
Welcome back to our Have a Chat series, our series where we bring people onto the podcast and we have a chat. Today, we are joined by none other than DaveRuinsArt.
Woo! Hello, Internet.
What's going on, everyone? So for those who don't know, like Jacob said, our Have a Chat series is our series where we invite people who are members of the Star Wars community or creators that have something to do with Star Wars onto the show to talk about their experience with the franchise. And we just talk about nerd stuff for an hour. So we have Dave today, who is on the podcast. So Dave, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do.
So I'm not a trained artist, but I started adding Star Wars to thrifted paintings like behind me during the pandemic. And actually, no, I've been doing it for like 5 years. But during the pandemic, one of my pieces went viral, ended up in Newsweek, and I've kind of been a professional artist on accident ever since then. So now I sell calendars and prints and posters and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny too because I remembered you had reached out to us a couple days ago about your calendar specifically, and I was like, I feel like I've seen this guy's work before. Like I feel like I've seen this, and then I went through your TikTok page and I saw that infamous video you had just mentioned, and I was like, oh my god, I have seen this guy before. I think stuff like that is so clever. Taking something that you wouldn't expect Star Wars to be in and adding Star Wars to it. Subtle things like that, I think are a lot more tasteful than, the t-shirt that has Darth Vader on it and says, I am your father, So like, I think stuff like that is very, very clever and really cool. So, I guess to kick it off, I saw you also have done other stuff too, like Lord of the Rings, some Godzilla stuff in there I saw.
Love Godzilla.
Where do you have a set idea of what franchise you're going to go towards when you get a painting, or does it kind of depend on how the scenery is?
I spend a lot of time looking at the painting and deciding like what it could be and what would fit. And I sketch them and I draw them. And, like some paintings, they'll only work with something that's as big as a Godzilla. So it has to be like Godzilla or an AT-AT or, something big. But every now and then I'll get one where you can see like people that are this tall, and I'm like, yeah, I can do stormtroopers and that. But that's pretty much how I get started on it. Is just look at it and try and decide what should be in that scene.
That's an interesting way to look at it, because it's an interesting position to be in, because I feel like with a lot of artists, you just have the blank canvas and you have an idea of what you want to be on the canvas. I know Jacob can probably speak more to this than I can, but you have an idea of it. And instead now it might be even more difficult because you have a scenery already set and you have to kind of decide what to add to it and where. So I know Jacob's doing art classes right now.
Yeah,
so.
I'm currently at Edinburgh University under the film major of fine arts, but I also have to do the rest of the fine arts courses. So I'm just getting through like drawing courses and doing like design courses. I actually have to work on my final project right when we get done with this. But it's I feel like it would be different just because usually I start off with like a blank piece of paper. We've been doing lots of still life drawing. So it's like we have to set up like a composition that we want that's in front of us. So when it comes to just like looking at the paintings and deciding what you want to do, is there more than just pulling reference from the painting, like there's this for scale, there's this for scale? Or do you ever go to the thrift store with an idea in mind and you're looking for a painting to match your ideas?
I have ideas in my head that like I always wanted to do one from the Ritual, and I hunted for something that would, because the Ritual monster is just a little bit bigger than a house, so I had to find like a cabin or something like that. And I have those in the back of my head, and like I have like, if I wanted to do like Andor, there's no big anything in Andor. It's all people. So I've got to find some kind of a setting where there's human-sized people, and I can squeeze in some dudes.
Okay. I particularly like your idea of using the Ritual. That is one of my favorite movies. I absolutely love that movie. It's a horror movie on Netflix, Tommy, that I know you haven't seen, but you got to see it. It's really, I love that movie. And I do think the creature design for that would probably suit the aesthetic of like these kind of thrifted paintings. I feel like that'd be really cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it's in the woods too, so it's kind of all of them are set a cabin in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I see that. Is that the Creature of the Black Lagoon on your shirt right now?
Oh yeah, this is
There we
done
go.
by a dude named Sean Star Wars. He does woodcuts.
Okay, cool.
I should have worn
Yeah.
one of the Star Wars ones.
Yeah, so I know Jacob is a huge horror fan, and I've been watching some horror movies with him recently, like American Psycho and a couple other cool ones. But what are you, like, a big horror fan yourself?
Oh, huge,
Yeah.
huge horror. I like monsters and monster design,
Okay.
and I always have. So literally, when I'm watching Star Wars or I'm really just waiting for like a tauntaun or a rancor or something cool.
Okay.
Everything's just segues to whenever there's a monster.
Okay. I assume that you're a big fan of like movies like The Thing, then, rather than
Oh
like
yeah,
Jason
hell yes.
and like Freddy Krueger.
I love Jason. Jason's my favorite horror movie. I grew up watching it back in the '90s. Your parents wouldn't like review what choice you made at the rental store, so I always got Jason Voorhees movies, and there was always like boobs and stuff like that I shouldn't have seen. I watch them now as like 14-year-old should not be watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my parents my entire life never really let me watch horror movies like whatsoever, and I've kind of like in these just kind of had like that moment like, okay, a ton of horror movies. I think probably my favorites right now are The Evil Dead, the original.
Yeah,
probably my favorite of all time.
yeah.
I love Friday the 13th, and I absolutely love Candyman. I think that's my favorite kind of like 90s horror movie.
Candyman.
It's so good. I like the
Yeah.
aesthetic that it like establishes, and it's so grounded in like what it is. I refuse to say Candyman 3 times in front of a mirror. I know it's a movie, but I'm not playing with it.
The trick to horror movies is they always have to make a setting where you can't just go to the cops.
Mm-hmm.
So in The Thing, they're in Antarctica, so you can't go get help. And in Candyman, they're in the ghetto, and like the cops aren't going to come help you.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that was so good.
I like Candyman a lot because not only is it a horror movie, it also it's a timepiece with lots of political undertones to the movie that really fuel an idea that's not like with today's filmmaking, where they'll take a movie and they'll have like a political idea in it, and they just want you to get the political idea on top of the story. I like smart filmmaking where it's like you can enjoy it at face value, but you can also dive deeper to get the true meanings out of movies.
When is the last time you watched the Chucky movie, the first Child's Play?
I probably like 7 months. I haven't seen it in a long time.
It is such, like you said, a period piece, and it reminded me of that because they're in a toy store in like 1987 or whatever it is, and it's all the original. Like they're really filming in a toy store.
Mm-hmm.
That movie's fascinating. I pause it and just look at all the boxes and fun stuff.
Okay. So if you're fascinated by toys, does that mean that you're currently like a collector of anything, or do you like?
Oh yeah.
Okay, what do you collect?
Well, now Star Wars toys because I used them as references. But mostly what I would always collect was knockoff Mexican versions of American toys. So I had a whole line of He-Man toys that were just like weird giant-headed skeletons and muscle guys and weird monsters and stuff. I've had some Star Wars stuff that was like fake Star Wars laser sword stuff, and that's my favorite. I like bootlegs.
Okay,
that's interesting. I feel like it works though, especially with the art aspect of it. I feel like having something that's not exactly, the complete realism there helps you kind of get in that mindset of having a style to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I adore lots of like art toys. I forget the artist's name, but his whole thing is he'll do like these caricatures of like, say, like Ronald McDonald, and half of it's like this grotesque Ronald, and the other half's like the innards, like skeleton and intestines and stuff. It's super cool. I just can't remember his logo is like a giant smiley face, but it's like skeleton. I can't remember his name right now though.
Yeah, I'd love to look at that. That sounds great.
Mm-hmm. I like oddities like that as well. I collect like on the side like NECA horror figures.
Hell
Just
yeah.
because it's like that scratches that itch. And probably my favorite one I have is the alien xenomorph from like
Yeah.
the first Alien movie. It's so cool. I love that design so much.
I have a collection of xenomorph toys that are like if xenomorphs had taken over different animals. So there's like a gorilla xenomorph, and there's like I think there's a T-Rex xenomorph, and there's like a horse xenomorph.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's neat.
I've never heard of those. I'll have to look those up later.
Pretty old, yeah. They're cool.
Nice. So I do know let's kind of like move back to like more of your side of things with art and on TikTok and things like that. So I know that you said that you weren't professionally trained. Does that just mean like you never like went to school for it? And then if so, how did you get into artwork in the first place?
I always liked art. I drew in high school nonstop, and I took art classes in college, but I dropped out. I was not a very good student, but I always wanted to do art. So we did comic books with my friends. We did zines, and I would go to comic book conventions. I was never very good at it, but I studied really hard at one point. I wanted to do. Have you ever seen a comic called Life in Hell?
I have not.
I've not.
Okay, so The Simpsons was created by Matt Groening. And before he did that, he did a comic strip called Life in Hell that was in alt magazines in, like little independent newspapers in small towns. It was real dry, and it was real smart and cool and funny. So I wanted to do something like that. So I worked on really hard on a comic, but it was at the exact same time that the internet was kind of killing the print business, and they stopped buying those things right when I started making them. So I just kind of gave up, and I started doing stand-up at that point, which was a lot easier.
Okay.
Interesting.
So is stand-up something that you're still pursuing, or is that something that it was just like a period of your life that you've kind of left behind because you now are doing art full time?
No, I was drinking way too much.
Okay.
Being nervous and in a bar 3 nights a week is a terrible combination.
I can imagine. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like me myself, I've done so many different things throughout my life, and I feel like all those things have had aspects that help me with where I am now that I'm focused on just a couple things I'm really passionate about. But there are so many things that I've done that I'll just be like driving around and I think to myself, I'm like, man, I really used to like do that. Like we were on a rowing team together in high school. We were both in like the theater program at our school. We were like super into that. But like, I mean, the theater stuff definitely helps a lot now because of having to be on the internet and, have a personality and kind of be able to project yourself into over the screen to people and entertain them. That's something that, especially with a podcast, I think helps us a lot because podcasts tend to run longer, and because they run longer, people's attention spans get lost after a while.
And not just that, the medium of podcast is so watered down right now. It's like you have to have something that makes you stick out from the rest. So if we can envelop that kind of, not necessarily the exact humor, but we definitely both grew up on people on YouTube like iDubbbz, Filthy Frank, and H3H3 in his prime. And we might not be going as extreme with their jokes, but we definitely kind of retain the same amount of energy that they had.
Just the absolute absurdity, the slapstick stuff like that, that's kind of our brand, I think. Well, we do call ourselves the most mediocre podcast in the Star Wars universe. So, that is part of it.
Most mediocre.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when we first started,
it was just a thing.
We would just kind of like, we were very mediocre when we started.
Yeah.
But we would, every episode, we would kind of come up with a different adjective. But just kind of like demeaning ourselves at the beginning of every episode. But after a while, I think mediocre started. It happened like a few times in a row. We used the word mediocre, and it just kind of became the brand after that.
Yeah.
So,
but if you sell real low and provide real high, people like it a lot more.
I'm just saying. Part of that too is like with the podcasting thing. So many people, when you look up a podcast, it's so common now for people to just, you know, they're doing a StreamYard call like we are now, and you know, you're sitting and you're just talking about a thing. I feel like something for us that helps us a lot is we're in the same physical space. So then even when you have a guest on for our show, it's like it makes it a little bit different of a dynamic, because at least between ourselves, you know, we can actually, we're here, like we are physically in front of each other, as opposed to you know, waiting for each other to speak, and you know, the awkward silence in between if someone's lagging, and I feel like it just makes a lot better of a dynamic.
It's fun. This is the new theater, is podcasts and online video and TikTok and stuff like that. I did theater in high school. I was never very good at it, but doing stand up really made it where I just don't care when I do I don't get nervous at all making a video, just because I've done it so many times, and and even if my comedy really sucked for years and years, you got to suck at something for a long time before you get good at it. So you know, and if your first podcasts were extremely mediocre, that's great, you know.
Yeah,
you always got to start somewhere.
And people need to be less afraid to suck.
That's another thing, like that's kind of been kind of nerve-wracking, especially when I started theater. I feel like one of my first roles that I had, which was basically in a school play, was I was an Irish cop, and I had to
remember that.
I had to put on an Irish accent. So I remember I went through and I found an Irish speech generator that like would write out the inflection of how Irish people talk, and it would also add slang terms into it. And I put my entire script through that, and I just memorized that instead of the actual script, which helped me a lot. And I think in that same exact show, Tommy played a guy that thought he was
I played a guy who had a mental illness and thought he was Teddy Roosevelt. And we were on stage together, I think, at one point. At the very end of the show, everyone was together, and someone pushed a chair into the dining room table on the closing night, and the whole tablecloth fell off the table, and it was like the funniest thing ever. But we all had to stand there like stone-faced at each other, because it was a very serious moment. The show was a comedy, but this was like a very serious moment because the cop was there because someone was getting arrested, type thing, you know. So it was fun.
That's what the best part of live theater is, when a door falls and
when something goes outrageously wrong. I remember in that show, it was like our third night of it, I forgot like a page and a half of dialogue, and I skipped over it. So the guy just was on stage with was a good friend of ours named Luke, and he just picked up immediately where I went, but the line that he said had context to all the shit that I forgot. So I was like, oh no. So I started ad-libbing on the spot, being like, because it was like supposed to be he was a playwright and I wanted to, well, he was a play critic and I was a playwright, like an underground one, but I was doing cop stuff on the side, and I forgot the entire monologue.
Another thing too, we were talking about not being afraid to be like mediocre and stuff. I feel like nowadays people, especially with like streaming or, you know, TikTok or anything, people think they have to buy the best equipment and have all the stuff before they start. And I've always told people, especially since we've started, do not invest the money into the best version of the thing right off the bat, because you might try it out for a couple months and then be like, this is not it. Like, this is not for me, you know, because if you really are about doing your content, you have to be okay with some of your stuff underperforming or having those dips. And I feel like that's people have an expectation, especially with TikTok, that they'll just get on, they'll blow up, and then that's it, you know, and it happens very spontaneously. But you could go years without anything blowing up. And you just have, it's just the luck of the draw. So I think that people have to have an understanding that you can't have the best of the best equipment, or you don't have to have the best of the best equipment right at the beginning.
No, I feel like one of the best examples of that is probably my favorite band of all time, Ice Nine Kills. And if you like horror movies and you like horror themed things, check them out. They're a metal band and all their songs are like horror themed on like their newer albums. But they weren't big at all until like they hit like 20 years. They've been a band for like 20 or like 15 years, and they just now finally hit their big break, and now they're going on Metallica's world tour starting next year. So it's like good for them, but yeah, you got to suck for a long time until you hit the jackpot.
The trick to the entertainment industry is that it appears effortless,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but it's a massive undertaking to perform and to promote and to do all the things that are necessary. When you do stand up, you walk out with a sheet that has all your jokes written on it and a water bottle, and people can't see the sheet, and you set it on the stool, and then if you lose your place, you go over and you drink some water and you look at the stool and you remember where you're at. But the reason for that is because people think that when you do stand up, you just walk up on stage and just you're funny. But in reality, it's very rehearsed and refined, and those jokes are edited and worked out, and it's a ton of work. But that's a good metaphor for anything, podcast, whatever it is. It's supposed to look like you're just screwing around, but in reality, you're working very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there any, like, on the internet, like any of your stand-up performances, like a video, like on like maybe like TikTok or YouTube or anything is that on the internet at all, or is that still just kind of like all personal stuff?
I bet there is. If you look up Dave Sherrill, that's my real name. If you look up Dave Sherrill, I'm sure you'll probably find some stand-up. I was doing it for about 5 or 6 years. I did pretty good. I performed with some from big names and opened for them, and I just couldn't handle the drinking all the time.
Okay. Do you think that you would go back to stand-up, or you think you're done with it?
Yeah, I haven't drank in years, and I don't really feel the urge to at all.
That's good.
It would be a great way to promote what I'm doing, to do jokes about it. So I think about it all the time, but open mic night is the worst thing in the world.
Oh, I know.
It's terrible. It's like going to see something you love get murdered for like 3 hours so that you can spend 5 minutes doing it.
I worked at a comedy club in Erie where we live for
Yeah.
about 4 months, and they tried an open mic night one time. And I was like a management position in the kitchen. So like I would just peek out like after everybody ordered their food. And me and the kitchen staff would like watch from the doors. But oh man, it was just, you would have like that one night we did it. There would be people that walked up there that had no business ever being near a microphone ever. Like, if you have serious stage fright, you should never consider doing comedy on a stage, because there'd be dudes that go up there and I thought that they just dropped a deuce right there on the stage, and they would just have to, like, they get up, be up there for 30 seconds and go, ha ha, and then turn around and leave. And it would just, oh man, yeah, painful.
When I first moved to Ohio, I was drinking at a punk bar, and I wanted to start an open mic night. So I did. And the guy couldn't find comedians. So what he did was he said, anybody that gets up and does stand up for 5 minutes would get 2 free beers. And it got loose in the homeless community that you could earn 2 beers if you just talk for 5 minutes. And it was amazing. It was so bad and so wild. It was one of the best open mic nights I've ever seen.
That's awesome. That's gotta be. Oh man. Yeah. It was we had some cool people when I worked at the comedy club. But there would be some of the openers, like for the main acts, would definitely be a little tough to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Part of it's like comedy is subjective. There are some people who find certain things funny and other people who don't. But at the same time, though, there is a general idea of things that most people find funny.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that some people are just out of touch with that. And I think it's something you do have to, again, with comedy, you have to try it out. If it's not for you, then it's not for you. But yeah, I think that it's definitely something that some people should never try.
Anything you do entertainment wise, you should take yourself and just turn it up to 11.
Yes.
So I'm kind of crazy, but if I'm performing, I just like,
yeah,
I give them the weirdest, funniest version of me possible. And that's the same thing you guys probably do with your podcast, is you give them you, but like maximum you.
Well, I would say that Jackson, who's not here tonight, Jackson and I do that, but Jacob just acts like himself. This is Jacob on the podcast
Yeah.
is Jacob all the time, every day.
Yeah,
And
that I would say it's an issue, but I love being me, so it's not. Like it's funny. My brother will be on this podcast, and like something will happen, and he'll start yelling. Fella will never raise his voice in public at all, and if I do, he acts embarrassed. So it's like it's so funny seeing like Jackson definitely has like his stage persona, and then his like everyday life. I'm just me. I'm just because I'm loud and belligerent no matter what. So
he's very. This is Jacob at like a 4 right now. I would say Jacob is very tame right now. But if you get that man talking about something he's very passionate about, it is just. Yeah, the number of times that I have just been choked, slapped, punched, kicked on the podcast. One time we're sitting here and it was like a guest episode. Someone was saying something so serious and talking about such a heavy topic when Jacob starts playing footsies with me under the table. So now I have to sit here and grab my thighs on my chair. So I don't smirk, because if I smirk, it's getting, what was it the one day we had one guest on the show, and it was like a group of people. And the one girl was talking about how like she got into Star Wars, and she was telling like this really emotional, deep story,
like about her and her dad or something,
her and her family members, and her hair was blocking her shirt. And it said like butt or something on it, and like it said balls or something like that. And the three of us all caught it, and so we're sitting there like I had tears streaming down my face, and she like finishes talking, and she could see that like we were all ready to laugh, and she's like, what did I say something? And we're like, no, you didn't say anything, it's just your shirt says balls. And that's like so funny.
You said you had the guy that read the audiobook of Thrawn. Is that the most famous person you've had on your podcast? Like have you gotten
we've had that's the one guy that's like worked like directly like with Lucasfilm that we've had on the podcast. We've also had Michael from Regs and Around on the show. And he has like his own podcast on YouTube. He's pretty big.
Not anymore.
He was in Kenobi as one of the extras in the background. So those are the two people that we've had like that have been in Star Wars on the podcast.
Ask Lee Towersy. He might do it. He's a really nice guy.
Who does he?
He built R2-D2 as a project, and he ended up getting the specifics from Lucasfilms. Like somebody went there and measured the actual R2-D2. So he made a hyper-realistic R2-D2 that was remote control, and it did all the stuff. So when they started to make Force Awakens, they just emailed him and were like, hey, would you just come do your droid for our film? So he was just a fan. He almost built a Dalek from Doctor Who, but it wouldn't fit in his car, so he did R2-D2 instead of that.
Wow.
But he's still working, still running droids. He worked on Andor, and he sent me a production hat from when they first started, and it was codenamed Pilgrim, and it's fucking awesome. He's the nicest guy. I did a painting for his Christmas cards.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
It was really cool. Yeah,
we definitely have to have him on the show. There's a guy actually like down the street a couple ways, and he has like a ranch style house, but his front porch there's BB-8, R2-D2, a TARDIS, and he has a Razor Crest in his driveway right now.
Oh my God.
I don't know who he is, but he's cool.
He's cool.
It's just like I would like ride past it some days, and like usually it was just like, like you see the TARDIS in his front yard. And then like one day I just rode past and I saw like this giant thing with a tarp over it. And I was like, what the heck is that? And I just saw that kind of like that yellow R on the side of it. And I was like, this dude is building a Razor Crest in his driveway. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to get in contact with him because I don't want to go like knock on his door and be like, you want to be on my podcast? So like,
I would go. Do it. Just do it.
I might just like write him a letter and put in his box.
You should get a wagon, fill it up with Girl Scout cookies. That way he's tempted by something else. He'll be like, oh, cookies. And he opens the door and you're like, whoosh, hey dude, I have a podcast.
Bribe him with a Star Wars toy. He collects.
I'll be like, hey man,
Star Wars cookies.
I'll be like, hey man, I made this.
Perfect.
Want to come on my show?
I used to live in Boyd, Texas, and it was where who played Chewbacca?
Peter Mayhew.
Peter Mayhew moved there, and he lived there for almost the end of his life. He did I don't know if he moved out when he did the last films. He wasn't in good health. He couldn't actually stand up when he did those last movies.
Yeah.
But I think he passed.
He did.
I never saw him. Some of my friends saw him walking around.
Wow.
I saw Han Solo once. He likes Fort Worth. Harrison Ford. I was riding a bicycle just downtown, and I came around a corner. I was like, that guy looks like Harrison Ford, but his head's too big. And later, I found out my sister went and drank with him.
That's awesome. That's crazy.
That's we write for. He's not here anymore.
No,
but
we had Paul Rudd and Jeremy Renner. So like Ant-Man and the Hawkeye were in our hometown. They were shooting some stuff. And this is a story that my mom can't hear. So I ride this thing called a one wheel. And one night, it was the night I found out that they were filming in town. Turns out they were I forget what show it is. It wasn't anything Marvel related, which I was bummed about. But it was basically they had a floating set and they were filming something on a sailboat, like out in the lake, like a little bit offshore. But I heard that they were doing like a night shoot. So I rode my one wheel all the way down from like where I live, all the way across town to like where they were like at night. And I found like the set, I found like all the lights and all the generators and stuff, but nobody was there. Turns out I missed them. I went right past the bar that they were both drinking at.
No.
I'm not 21, so I couldn't get in anyway.
And
but,
I was there. I was going over the summer. I was going to that bar. It's like an outdoor bar that's really only open during the warm months.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Renner was bartending for like weeks. Like just every night he would just show up and bartend at like
just for fun.
I never got to be there on the night he was there, but like people were sending me, like one of my friends sent me a picture and I said, oh, he goes, it's Hawkeye. I said, oh, it looks just like him. And he goes, no, dude, it's Hawkeye. And I said, you're kidding. And I said, but he's behind the bar. And he was like, yeah, dude, he's bartending. Isn't that awesome? It's like,
that's great. That's amazing.
But I rode all the way across town, and then my mom called me. She's like, "Where are you?" And I couldn't tell her where I was, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just around." And then my board died halfway home, and I had to like carry it and sprint. And then my mom,
how much does that
on my phone, being like, "Hey, where are you?" I was like, "Ah."
I'm TikToking you guys.
TikTok. We're being TikTok. TikTok.
Perfect.
I'm glad we didn't cut out when you tried to do a TikTok.
Yeah, that would be just be like.
So you had said that you were a big fan of monsters and stuff with the horror movies and stuff. So did you see the Book of Boba Fett?
Oh yeah.
What'd you think of that Rancor, both the physical one and the CG one at the end?
Dude, you know what? That was when I fell in love with Star Wars, was the second I saw the Rancor. When I saw that as a little kid, I was just like, what? All the lights went off in my brain. And then when he gets killed and the Rancor master starts crying and you realize that it's his pet, it was so funny to me as a little kid. So when that Rancor busted out, like I know people complain about it online a lot, but I loved it. All the lights went off in my brain.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that the creatures are one of the things that makes Star Wars so unique as compared to other franchises that are similar to it. Because you have your humanoids and you have just like every franchise has their aliens that just are just people with different colored skin and then a weird looking head. Then you have Star Wars has like these different ones. Like you have like the Ithorians, which have the hammerhead shark head. And then you have like the Kaminoans who have like the really long necks and stuff. Like it's just things like that take it to that next level, and it's no longer the uncanny valley that is, oh, it's almost a person, but it's not. Now you have stuff that I feel like help immerse you into that world.
You remember in A New Hope when the first time you go into the Mos Eisley Cantina, there's werewolves and there's devils and there's all these weird creatures. The reason for that is they didn't have a huge budget. So they went to their props guy and they're like, what mask do you have? And they're like, I got a werewolf and a devil. And that's the reason that Star Wars has such weird aliens, is because, you know, they just had to do what they had to do.
They literally had Halloween costumes.
Yeah,
Like
literally.
for Star Wars. Like, and now
Unfortunately.
everybody sees it as this like, and it's a world like shattering film in the
Yeah.
entertainment industry. Literally, they were just using like there was a guy in an astronaut suit, like just
Oh, yeah,
walking
yeah.
around in the cantina, you know. And it's funny because, you know, and then we see the devil guy. Their species is called DaveRuinsArt.
Oh,
And
nice.
he shows up. There's one of them in the Mandalorian,
Oh,
in
nice.
the episode where they do the jail heist on the jail ship.
Mhm.
And they take something that was such a quick little blip in a background character,
Oh, yeah.
and
The big
yeah, they
strong
make
guy.
a whole thing out of it. You know,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
And then
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
things
yeah.
like in episode 5 where you see Bosk for the first time. He's wearing a reused costume from Doctor Who.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I think the Admiral Akbar, isn't he from like Planet Calamari?
Yes. Yep. Exactly. It's just like, it's so funny because Star Wars, I love when Star Wars is like self-conscious in that way, where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, people like they recognize this, but they you know, they'll so we'll just play with it a little bit, you know. Or there's a planet that's called Wobani in Rogue One. It's literally just Obi-Wan, and they rearranged the letters. They were like, oh, we got to come up with a name for this planet. Let's just take Obi-Wan's name and rearrange the letters a little bit.
There's
Like,
2 characters that work for Jabba the Hutt. They're like in his lair, and then they're like skiff guards, and their names are Klaatu and Verada.
yeah.
And that is a reference to science fiction film The Day the Earth Stood Still.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah, probably not. But yeah, it was. It's also an Evil Dead. When he has to open the book and he says Klaatu Verada, that's the names. And
Okay.
it's a reference to that first movie.
Nice.
But
And it was I think it was cool, especially because around this time that the original trilogy was coming out, you had all these other legendary directors like Spielberg and all these other people who were making these fantastic blockbuster films that
yeah.
we all, to this day, pop culture, you know, you have all these movies that are so vastly different. And then like in the prequel trilogy in the Senate building, there's just one of the pods has a bunch of ETs in the, in the pod. It's like stuff like that you just would never ever expect, and here it is in Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much fun stuff that you can watch them over and over, and there's just little things everywhere.
Yes.
And then in Andor, you see the rocks from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and Luthen's little shop in the background.
And
so.
Indiana Jones's whip is in carbonite in Luthen's shop as well.
I didn't know that.
Yep. We're weird. We analyze.
We pause and go,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I see that.
So,
Anytime there's a shop in a Star Wars thing, always just pause every frame where there's a different shot and go, what did they cram in here? Or any kind of cantina. You can always guarantee that there's some sort of little Easter egg somewhere.
Where did the name 1313 come from?
So
you get that a lot.
1313 is derived from the canceled 1313 game that was supposed to come out right before Disney bought Star Wars.
Okay.
It was going to be about level 13, column 13 on Coruscant, but the game was about a young Boba Fett making his way through probably the most corrupt section of Coruscant. So they had all that artwork done and all that branding and all those logos that were nice and neat and polished and done. And then they just said, oh, we can't use these. And we said, we will. And then we...
That's great.
So,
oh my God.
Our 1313 logo on like in the top corner is basically, it's just Coruscant with that over top of it. And then we got that one, which Tommy's dad made. And then we also have stuff like we got t-shirts.
We got merch.
Got the merch. So
that's great.
Real simple. Just it says 1313 on Arabesh, things like that.
Yeah.
And then now we even have like different logos. Like Jacob has made an alternate logo that we put at the beginning of every podcast episode. And right now we have like a Christmas intro where it's just the 1313 with a Santa hat on it. We did a Halloween version of the logo. So we have like alternate secondary logos that we switch around.
Is that CG? Or are you doing computer graphics, or what are you doing?
So like I'm just doing like real basic kind of like
Oh, okay. It's just kind of a graphic. That's
yeah,
killer.
like just graphic stuff. I have that one. Let's see if I can find the Halloween one.
Halloween one is really cool.
I'm not gonna be able
It's
to
in our
find
email.
that. But I basically I took, if it'll turn, I made this logo as well out of like half a clone trooper helmet.
Oh, hell yeah.
And then
Oh.
I cracked it and I put ooze on it and spider webs and things like
Yeah.
that for Halloween.
Killer.
Mhm.
We actually, now it's to the point where people in our community have made us our own custom clone trooper battalion.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they make
nice.
us custom action figures and like,
Yeah.
you know, it's crazy.
Oh,
It's
that's
insane.
awesome.
All the stuff that's been done.
We have here's two right here. This one's of my brother as a heavy trooper.
No shit.
And then this one's me as an ARF commander, but I did the Hasbro selfie series, so my head's actually on it.
How did they do the head?
So Hasbro has a thing right now called Selfie Series. If you download the Hasbro Pulse app, it just does like a it's not a 3D scan, it's like an imager scan of like your face, and then they match it to like a head sculpt that they have predetermined, and then they just print your face onto that head sculpt.
Oh
But
my
you can
God.
choose your hair and everything like that. So yeah, a guy named Lungy's Hideout made this for me. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, so we have like a little battalion kind of growing. We had another guy named Your Casual Clone from Germany. He made us our first trooper, and then for Halloween, he made like a zombie one where it's like the helmet's cracked open and there's a skull in there and there's blood all over it. And I'm trying to procure that one from him
Heck yeah.
as soon as I get the funds for it.
Because international shipping is
Crazy.
not cheap.
No, it's not. I sent that painting to Lee Towersy, and it was cost a lot.
Yeah, it's a pretty penny. I mean, I think it was what we sent him something one time, and it was just one action figure in the smallest box possible, and the shipping was like $40 for. Oh no, it was T-shirts. We sent him because he bought T-shirts from us, and so we sent him just in a bubble mailer. It was like $45 to ship it to him.
Yeah, it cost about $25 for me to ship one print, even to like Canada, which is just like right there.
You're kidding.
No, and a poster is like $50.
See, that's absurd. I think it's absurd.
People pay.
It's sad. It's because it's like, and you know, as someone who sells your work, you know, you can attest to this. It's like it's hard because you don't want to charge people that live out of the country extra for the shipping, but it's like you kind of have to, because then you're not making any, you're actually losing money because the shipping costs more than the product itself sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh hell yeah, that's great, dude. You make me a logo.
But yeah, it's just, I feel like the shipping just kind of puts a bite into the fun of it, you know, especially when it's international. So it's nice that, you know, when it's a passion project, it's one thing, but you know, I always feel bad like telling people, oh, you got to pay double what it's worth because we got to make sure we can cover your shipping, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So a little bit about Star Wars, I guess. So what are you kind of leaning? Is there anything you're excited for coming forward with Star Wars? There's a ton of projects coming up here.
Honestly, I don't know what's coming up. I just finished Andor. It was just amazing.
Oh yeah.
The new animated series about the Jedi Tales.
Tales of the Jedi. Yep.
Tales of the Jedi. That was an absolute blast. And honestly, I'm not picky. Anything that comes out with Star Wars, I usually like it. There's never been. I even like the prequels. I mean, it's fun. The holiday specials, like the only thing that I won't watch again. But other than that.
Jacob, have you ever watched it all the way through?
Nope, and I never will.
So yeah, I've tried to watch it once or twice, and it's just so difficult. Like I always fall asleep when I watch it, and I'm not a person who falls asleep when I watch stuff like that.
There's a scene where Chewbacca's grandpa gets a hollow disc.
Yep.
And a stripper, one of the girls with the hairs that, and she sexy dances for like 5 minutes while grandpa like licks his tongue, and Oh, it's awkward. It's
Mhm.
awful.
So weird.
I've watched bits and pieces. I can never get through it all, and I never will.
I own it, but I won't watch it again.
Yeah, that's kind of, it's like a rite of passage almost, you
Yeah.
know. You gotta, yeah, it's, oh man, it's just awful. Well, I mean, if you don't have anything, do you have any questions for us before we wrap up here?
No, but can I talk about my calendars?
Dude,
Of course,
absolutely.
plug
Yeah.
the mega crap out of it.
So this is my third calendar, and it's not out yet. But here's
That's
Motel Fantasy Art and Motel Fantasy Art 2. So this is my third calendar. It's got 14 of my prints in it for just $5 more. If you pre-order it, it's $5 off, so it's only $25. So it's 14 prints, and I packed it full of 100 different nerdy holidays. So Star Wars Day is on there, Revenge of the Fifth is on there, Life Day is in there. Life Day is coming up too.
Life
Yeah.
Day just passed, actually. It was like a few days ago.
I thought it was December 5th.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like it was before Thanksgiving.
I
What
miss
day
it
is
every
Life
single
Day?
year. And for someone who makes calendars, Compass Notch is what I'm thinking of.
November
Yep.
17th.
There we go.
Tell me
I
if I'm
miss
wrong.
Life Day.
Dang. All the
But it's
celebrations.
got Godzilla's birthday and like Ugly Sweater Day, Gummy Worm Day, World UFO Day.
Cool. That's awesome. And so where can we find that? You have a website?
Yeah, if you go to DaveRuinsArt.com, which is really, I owned a vintage store before this. So Arrowhead is my vintage store. So arrowheadcanton.com is the real website. But if you go to Dave Ruins Art, it'll forward you there.
Okay.
But I've got calendars, I got posters, I've got prints, and I'm my most popular print. I'm doing half off this Christmas season because I really just like people having it.
That's
I-
awesome.
Okay.
I'm excited to be an artist. It's so much fun to me because I didn't try to do this. So if somebody wants my art, I really just want them to enjoy and have it.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So to everybody watching this video, we're going to have a link to his stuff below. Pre-order the calendar, buy a print while you're there. It's not expensive. You're supporting this man and his beautiful artwork, I must say. It's super cool. So this is do I have a fantasy weapon nearby that I can threaten people with?
Fantasy weapon.
No, I'm
nearby.
going to use an Xbox controller. Buy it. Go buy it now. Go buy it now. Or else.
I was trying to see if I had a lightsaber or something.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Nope.
do I have like a blaster or something, or like Dagat? But like,
Yeah, so everybody, like Jacob said, all of the links to all of Dave's stuff is going to be in the description below. His TikTok, his Instagram, his website, everything. So make sure to go check out all of his stuff in the description below. And aside from that, we do have to give you our lightning round still, which we give
Okay.
to all
You froze up.
guests
Right
on
at the
Have It's
lightning
Free. Real quick, under hard. So,
You're back.
all right, ready? First one.
Yes.
What is your favorite Star Wars character?
Rancor.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Wait.
Very nice. Rancor coming in hot with the boba on top.
That's
And now he's dead.
Ah,
There goes Boba.
so cool.
So Rancor. So I guess that means we got to ask. We've got to ask. What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
New Hope.
Okay.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's a good choice.
And then finally, what's your favorite Star Wars TV show?
TV show? Mandalorian was probably like the most fun that I've had. Dave
Yes.
Filioni and the other guy, they put so much fun stuff in there.
Yes.
Like the first time you see the gun is from the Christmas holiday special, the animated thing. I'm like,
Yes.
oh, come on. That's
And the fact that it disintegrates people.
yeah. And the Blorg, that was in like a made for TV Ewok adventure movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're a
Okay,
Star Wars
great.
nerd, that was the best.
Yeah. It's just stuff like that that makes Star Wars again to that next level. you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, do you have any questions for us before we wrap it up?
What does a one wheel cost?
So right now, I don't know if they're still doing their Black Friday deal. The one I had was $2,000. I worked like for 2 years just to be able to get it.
Yeah.
But they're doing for the newest model, the One Wheel GT, it is $450 off.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm actually in need of getting a new one. This has been something on the podcast. I got hit by a car while riding mine not too long ago, and now mine's gone. It's destroyed. So,
how are you?
I got up and asked them if they were okay.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Wow.
Yeah, One Wheels are absolutely fantastic. They have that, and they have the Pint. The Pint is only, I believe, right now it's the Pint X. It's like 1,100. Has like a 20-mile range at 18 miles per hour. Highly recommend it for just like commuting in the summer if you're living in the city, or just for overall fun. It is like literally like the best thing on earth, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it looks like fun.
I couldn't recommend it more.
It's part of Jacob's personality.
Yeah,
he's known as the one wheel kid. You know.
You have to add it to your action figure.
Dude, they do make one like miniature One Wheel, so I might have to grab
that'd
one.
Be so cool.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, so aside from that, everybody make sure, again, I know I said it before, but make sure to go check out all Dave's stuff in the description below. And with that being said, everybody, thank you for watching another episode of the 1313 podcast. Make sure to go check out all of our social media in the description below. That's Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, as well as going and checking out our Discord. Lots of fun Star Wars fans in there. We have all types of stuff in there you can go check out. Make sure to go consider subscribing to our Patreon, because we do monthly giveaways at our Gungan Boss tier of our Patreon, as well as 2 other tiers of our Patreon. But at the Gungan Boss tier, this month's monthly giveaway is going to be the Black Series Jon Favreau figure. So if you want to get involved with that, make sure to join the Patreon before December 1st, because that is when we're going to be giving that away. And everybody, if you want to buy some merch, go check out our Teespring page. We have merch. It's awesome. It's really cool. Seasonal merch may or may not be coming out in the near future. We don't actually know. Everybody, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, and we will see you all for the next one. Goodbye! Woo!